Alright, so I'm getting set to put the deck back on the x738, and I thought I better check the owner's manual here because I haven't, and I've always wondered about this gearbox here. Obviously there's a fill plug here and probably the oil check as well, and I'm assuming you're supposed to check that, so I'm going to check the owner's manual here and we'll see what it says before I put it on the machine so I can do all the checking and stuff. I already went through and greased it. I got to put the blades on after I sharpened them here, so let me check the book. Okay, so going through the service intervals here, it says every 10 hours, if you're operating dry, you clean debris. 25 hours you should lubricate the spindles, dry shaft, wheels, mower lift kit, all that stuff. Yep. 100 hours, there it says check gearbox oil level, and right now I'm at 108 on the lawnmower, but obviously I did a bunch of snow blowing over the summer, so I'm going to check it anyway here. And then it says here every 500 hours you're supposed to change the gear oil. So, and then that's all it says on this page. If we turn the page, top here it lists the type of oil, which I figured was a 80W90, just a gear lube, GL5. And then for checking, it says you're going to remove that plug, and they show a little diagram here. And oil level should be even with the bottom of the plug hole. If oil is low, add oil as recommended, install plug. So that's a pretty simple check there, something that some people may end up missing, and I would imagine a gearbox getting torn up like that would not be a good thing. Alright, so what I'm using here is a 8mm, this is like a Allen type, square drive type that I'm going to go in. It's just on a 3/8 ratchet. Okay, so one thing to note here, we'll see when we open this up. I'm going to take this out. This deck was actually set up on end just for storage, and then I kind of like chained it to the wall so it can't fall down. It stores nicely that way. It'll store upright real nice. So I don't know if all this gear oil is where it should be. It's about 50 degrees or so in the shed here, so hopefully by this point it would be down, because I've had it down here for probably about an hour. So we're just gonna take this out here. And then I don't know, you may want, I don't know if we'll need to put any thread seal on here or not. I'm willing to bet that as soon as we pull this out, there's going to be oil that comes out a little bit. It says that the oil should be at the bottom of the hole. And okay, well, nothing came out. That's good, I guess. Wow. I don't see anything in there. That'd be cool. That's going to be a call to the dealership if there was nothing in the gearbox, because that should have already came prepped, ready to go. Let me pause here for a second. Okay, so upon further inspection, there is oil in it, thank God. However, it's not to the bottom of the threads. It's probably just below, and according to what it says, it should be to the bottom of the threads. So I'm just going to use, you probably can't see this because I got the camera too close. Oh, this is 75W90. That's not really the right stuff. I may end up putting that in because I'm not going to buy special gear lube for that little bit. And this is synthetic. I think I used this in a car axle or something, so I'm just going to put some of this in and we'll see how much it takes. There's not much in here either, because like I said, I did a, it was on a Crown Victoria, an axle seal bearing, I believe. I don't know, it's hard to tell if I'm putting anything in or not. I don't, yeah, there's not much in here. I don't want it spilling out either. Let's see how close we are here. Oh yeah, it's just now to the bottom of the threads here. I'll show you with the camera in a second. I'm just going to give it a little bit, whatever I got left in this container here. Gear lube. Smells good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, get some gear lube. Take a big whiff. Alright, let me pause here, get my hands ungreased. Okay, so you can see on that inner thread the oil is just touching that, so that's perfect. That's exactly where you want it. You could probably put a little bit more in so it comes out, but I don't know how much pressure that would build up, and then you'd probably end up blowing out this seal here on the PTO, so you want to be careful with that. You don't want to put too much oil in. It looks like there is a breather right on top here. So yeah, so that's interesting that it was a little down. I don't know that, you know, who knows. That's why they have you check it, I guess. I don't think it would have burnt any. The other thing is, I know a lot of people think that John Deere is like all USA built stuff, but clearly a lot of their components, the spindle, you see right there, made in China. That's not impressive at all, but it seems like a lot of manufacturers going the cheap road, going to China for their stuff. So again, then we're going to take this and thread this in. Quick story here. This reminds me of a time I worked with a guy and we were installing a silo winch to run the silo up and down, and his job, because he wasn't the brightest bulb, was to install the oil into the gearbox, and then it looked just like this plug. It was the same thing. He said that he lost the plug and he couldn't find it, and the foreman at the time was like, all right, well, we need to find that plug. We can't run the thing without it. We don't have any extra plugs with us. So we're looking all over this floor and silage for this little tiny black, it was black, it wasn't silver like this one, plug. And then foreman's like, he was pretty convinced that the guy had screwed it all the way in and it fell inside the gearbox, because again, he wasn't very bright. And the guy swore up and down he didn't. So foreman had me take apart the gearbox, and guess what was inside? That exact plug. So had we started that thing up, or used a different plug and started it up, it would have destroyed that gearbox. Like, unreal. So yeah, make sure you don't run it in. And then after you put it on, you probably want to double check once you run it to make sure there's no oil here. If there is, I would just run it out. Either put some thread seal tape on or some of that black oil resistant RTV. So there you go. That's some maintenance stuff that may be overlooked if you're not careful. So one of the things I'm getting ready to do here is change the oil, and I need to get the lawnmower warm. This is a good opportunity for the oldest to get an opportunity to drive the lawnmower around. She's pretty careful, and yes, the seat, the safety in the seat is disconnected, or there's no way that she'd be able to drive it without it quitting. So, and I remember as a kid too, I would get to drive the lawnmower around in the spring just to get it warm before Dad would change the oil. Alright, so I also installed the blades on the deck here because I had them off to get them sharpened. If you're wondering, the bolt here does have a torque spec. It should be 50 foot-pounds. I used the 18mm socket and my half-inch torque wrench. I did, though, however, torque them a little bit more. I torqued them to 70 foot-pounds just because I didn't check the book. I kind of guessed based on the bolt size, so 70 is more than enough. Alright, so this thing is screaming hot, so I'm going to change oil. I'm not going to show you how I do it. I got a different video of that up. You can look for it, but I said it's about 108 hours on it, and the last time I did oil change was 86.6. So there you go. That's where we're at with hours, and I'm going to change the oil, and then I'll probably show you me putting a deck on once I get the oil changed here. And the reason I'm doing the oil now without the deck on, obviously it's a little bit easier to get to everything. Alright, so I got the deck on. Like I said, I think I got a video of me taking it off. I'll just show you the quick points of doing it. So get your deck outside, get it on the grass, because otherwise you won't be able to drive on it. It'll just slide ahead. And then once you've driven over it, and I drive over it, I don't back over it, I drive over it, this bar here, get that stuck between those two pieces that comes up towards the front. It sits in here, sits in the other side, and then you just basically rotate it up with this here. The spring pin is what holds this in place. So you just rotate it up and it snaps in. The next step then is to make sure you get your this part here disconnect, because that holds the arms up, your lifting arms. For the snowblower, you don't need that, and there's a drive shaft that runs through, so you want to make sure you don't accidentally put those arms down. So you pull the pin, pull that up, that lets these come down, and then you may have to wiggle the deck back and forth to get these bars to fall down. Once you got them in place, make sure that this is up and in the locked position, so you don't, when you lift the deck, you don't accidentally smash this bar against that little rod. And then the last thing you do, and you can see it is the drive shaft right there, is put that on. Don't put the drive shaft on first, because this bar will ride on top of that, and that's not right. So that's all it's to it. There's really three major things: that bar in the front, these lifting arms, your drive shaft. That's it. You're done. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing. You know, you might have to do some adjusting on your wheels there to make sure you got them set right so you don't scalp the lawn. But other than that, it's a pretty simple setup. So I'm going to call this a win, and this should be ready for the season.